I've done it, and it's not that hard to do.
That's what Bedini did. That's how he got rid of the lens.
Exactly.
He put the high voltage 4007 diode in reverse polarity. So when the flyback happened, which creates the lens, by the way, I'm pretty sure it's
part of it, yes. But if you can flip that polarity at that second,
it does flip. It flips on its own.
That's the engineering aspect that's key to getting it to work.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that tuned, the device will never work. And then there's the other aspect.
Yeah, it's not like we're trying to re-engineer physics here. We're trying to engineer the engineering.
Yeah, by capturing the flip, you're getting rid of the lens. By dumping the flip of the polarity, you're channeling the lens into the battery, which is what Bedini did.
Exactly. It's all in the engineering. It's all in the engineering. It's not like we're trying to rewrite physics here. Some of those, like Lenz's law and Hertz and all these different laws. We're not trying to change it.
It's possible the nanocarbon could capture the flyback all day long and channel it. Maybe that's what it's doing.
I'm just going to give you a quick demo of the caustic method of making this nano coating, and I fully comprehend everything that all of you said, and this actually might be the material that you need for the rest of the circuit of the copper.
Why don't we do introductions for everybody before we get into each individual project that we have going on?
I'm Mike Duz. I work on Pulse Motors. That's pretty much.
Michael Boyd, go for it.
You guys, Bernie, all I see is Bernie's.
Yeah, we're on the side there.
Okay.
Okay, so Bernie's demoing. I guess we'll do introductions after.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Let Bernie demo, and then we can do intro.
That's a catch coil, okay. Nanocarbon.
He's got his audio off, by the way.
Yeah, his audio's off.
You're muted, Bernie.
My bad. Sorry. Didn't realize I was muted. What I was showing there, though, the black copper is the 16 gauge that was sitting in the caustic liquid for about a year, which is breaking down the outer shells of the already triple solenoid wires that are wrapped in there. And then there was the smaller, I don't know what gauge it is. Oh, it was like a 0.4 or 0.3 gauge copper that was also sitting in there, like that's this size, but it has a plastic coating on it, so the caustic doesn't work because I didn't strip the little plastic coating off of it. And that's a key part of the nano coating process. Another way that you can do it is taking a blowtorch to the copper, and you don't let it get all the way molten red. It's just before it gets to that state of red glowing when it turns into
Bernie.
like a shimmering rainbow to make.
Bernie, have you tried this one before? Is heat up the copper and then dip it into a cold water of borax.
Yes, that it works for resetting it and setting it in a permanent thing. The only issue is that when you're making the final, I guess, like drawing or formation of this nano coating layer, you want to have a direct charge or like a voltmeter hooked up to it so that there's an electric current charge directing all of that nano layering as it solidifies and forms that shell into a one direction.
That's what Bedini was saying with the borax. When you heat it up really hot, it will start going dark, and then when it goes dark like black, that's when you dunk it into the borax, and then the borax, whatever it does, the special nano coating will allow you to have that, the one-way gate, basically a diode. So
it always goes into that black state when it's nano coated, And what's really weird is that Keshi first said this like 10 years ago, and I was like, yeah, right. And then now I've literally reproduced the effect happening like 100 times out of 100 times, where the entire wire, even under plastic coating, the entire wire after about 6 months to a year will be the black nano coated, self-organized by itself, doing it into that state. And you can literally take a knife and cut off your plastic coating and find, instead of a copper color, the black nano coating across your entire wire. It's just weird and interesting. Has anybody ever gotten a mass spectromesis analysis of the black state?
All the spectroscopy analyzer.
Yeah,
I gotta get. I know it's hard, a tongue twister to say that. I like to get my hands on one of those. That'd be good
quadrupole
for
mass spectrometer.
Yeah,
there we go.
Yeah, I used to operate one of those puppies.
My boss has a spectrometer that can measure the quantity of oxygen inside the brain through your skull and everything, and it's real time. It's pretty cool.
I want one.
All right, sorry, I'm gonna shut up now. Everybody, please do introduce yourself, and I'm gonna run around for a minute to try to find an example of a wire that I can strip and show the black nano coating under the plastic.
All right,
No
Gerald,
stripping,
you're first.
Please, Bernie, no stripping. Sorry.
Gerald, you're first. Introduce yourself.
Sure.
Hello, everyone. I'm Gerald. I'm the guy with electromagnetic coils without moving parts. I'm in the process of getting a spot for APEC for a demonstration. So I'm gonna do a demo tonight for you guys, but just a small one. I'd have to set up the camera. My background is I'm a backyard mechanic. I'm an inventor. I do all kinds of different things. I've built alternator generators. I've built magnet generators. I've built, every free energy device on YouTube. I built it and pretty much debunked it as well. But
great.
after all that spending of money and gathering garbage from different parts of the city in order to build half that stuff, I mean, it's a hobby, right? So what do you do? But
exactly.
Thankfully, I've come across something that should be shared. You guys want to give me a sec here? I got to set up my camera.
Let's go through everybody here first, and then that'll give you time to set up, and then we'll come right back to you. Nathan, maybe you can.
My name is Nathan Bunten. I do Graviflier. I run the channel Old Man Builds on YouTube, and I also do static electricity experiments. Basically, I could take these static electricity things, I can polarize it, and I can create force in one direction as a capacitor. So normally you get ion wind. I remove the ion wind. I take the paper part and I make it polarized towards the one side, towards the anode, and it'll force it in one direction. You can make it spin. It's a little bit like T.T. Brown. I don't know that I got anywhere close to the level he did, but I'm generating force. So the next thing in the experiment, I've already taken 2 flyback DCs and put them together, and they make this thing lift. Now, I could also do it with the Wilmhurst. I could do it with any kind of static electricity device. And the next part is I'm going to thin them down. So right now they're about this wide. I can show you. This right here is what's in the center of them. So you can see that right there.
Yep.
It's kind of thick. And then all you have is this right here, a piece of PVC. You got this big side and a little side. And the little side always goes towards the big side. So when you put them all together, basically what it's going to do is it's going to create a capacitor. Now, it removes all the charge out of it for ionized wind. All that's gone. You won't get any reading on it. What you will get is force in one direction every time. So if we can thin this and stack the plates until this thing no longer creates a force and then back it off one, then I can create a higher amount of pressure in one direction. And that's the next step. So we go right into how much is in there. And I can tell you right now, it's quite a bit. I expect to get a lot more than normally you would out of anything. So my goal is if I can get anywhere close to a half a pound by the time I add maybe 4 more of these when they're thinner. And the whole thing is the reason I think I can get more is I'm going to take the radius of this thing, because that's where the pressure is in this. You take the radius, you thin this portion because you don't really need it. You just need the mass amount of charge here, and it'll push in one direction. So by stacking them, you're able to get more force. So that's the static electricity one I do. I also do the Graviflier.
Right.
So you're building like a stacked battery, but as a giant capacitor thing.
Well, not necessarily a battery. It's meant to create force. So, I mean, there's no the charges in it. When I say the charge, it just means that I'm polarizing it. So I'm just allowing it to stick to something very hard. So, and when it sticks to it, I can create the force in it. So I'm not trying to create any kind of battery out of it to like make energy.
Sorry, I more meant that like the voltaic battery piles is like just like the geometry of what you're doing with.
Could be, yeah.
It's the whole driver that charges it. The high voltage negative.
It has to be 2 of them, so you eliminate most of the amps. You're in milliamps, and the high voltage itself is what's creating it. It's creating a charge on the actual paper way more than it would on a whole lot of styrofoam or anything else. It probably has like twice the effect on paper than it ever would on styrofoam. You could see it very clearly as soon as you hit the button. It's done. It immediately hits. So,
you know, that's funny you said paper, old man builds, because I can't remember where, but I heard or somewhere I learned that there's more lift on these type of devices when you do it over wood, and paper is made out of wood.
Yeah, it's just
and
like
it's also high in carbon. It's it's a high source of carbon. Wood. So
wood polarizes faster than most materials ever will. So basically, anytime. I'm sorry, what?
Most of the planet is wood, so these devices would have no trouble getting around over a carbon-laden planet if it's got to do with carbon anyway.
Yeah.
Because the paper's carbon, The paper's carbon.
I just know that when I started doing like the high voltage, that anytime you take a piece of aluminum foil, you put it on the table, you hook your fly back up to it, it'll immediately suck down. It'll also be the reason why your paper lifter or whatever you want to build doesn't lift. So your ionized lifter and stuff immediately sucks down because it immediately repulls everything in the whole thing to immediately suck down. To get it to break that, you have to keep it off of it, or you have to reverse the charge quickly in order to bounce it off. So
interesting.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of, I have to do the same thing in the Graviflier. In order to get anything to stop polarizing to the ground or the table or anything, you're going to have to reverse the charge quickly, or else it's not going anywhere. It'll actually go from a vibration.
That's why you're not getting it to lift. It keeps polarizing to something else.
Yeah, it's pulling down. Now, the way to get around that is you have to bounce it off, but you also have to have your Tesla coil in ground, earth ground. You have to have it there.
Yeah.
In order to be able to reverse the field quickly, it has to be able to respond that quickly. And because of that thing's tied into your Tesla coil, that's the way it does it. So it actually takes the top 4 inches of your Tesla coil. When you have the wire down on the throat, you're not having it directly connected. It's down the throat. When you do that, the top 4 inches takes on the exact frequency of this center plate right here. So every frequency that comes in it from this disc, that disc, the piezoelectric disc in the top up here, everything comes into it. And you have to find the right amplification in it in order to get it to even run right. And then when you do, you actually get rewarded. So what'll start happening is originally it starts to shake like this. And then when you get the amplification of energy because you hit the right resonance pattern in here, you can amplify this disc to this disc, and you'll actually take the Tesla coil energy and the high voltage energy, and they'll amplify together. So it's like this disc right here in energy is swelling, and it's creating pressure on both of the other discs. And it creates like a capacitor, and it takes the capacitance in that capacitor and drives it up and creates an amount of pressure in there that you can actually flip the field based on when the piezo buzzer hits. So it's a whole interesting concept. There's probably maybe 40 interactions in this thing that you have to know before you can get anywhere to get anything to give you an amount of energy more than what you would normally put into something. So it's pretty hard. It's not just one of those things you just plug into the wall and say, hey, we're done, man.
Yeah,
I wish it was.
Cool. That's awesome. Okay, so we're gonna go to the next person to do their little intro. I guess we'll go
Mr.
yeah, we'll go
Put
to
Mr. Boyd on spot
All right.
because jail